They smiled through champagne toasts and camera flashes, pretending the family was whole, the story complete. But I stood at the edge of the celebration, invisible in plain sight, until the truth slipped out like a slow-moving storm no one saw coming. Before we begin, if you've ever kept a secret to protect someone else, only to be betrayed in return, subscribe to Reddit Family Tales. Give this video a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story matters too. I didn't expect to be invited to the graduation. That's the part that still stings the most. When your own family leaves your name off the guest list intentionally, it's not an oversight. It's a message. A declaration. You are no longer one of us, but they underestimated the university. Apparently, my name was still listed as an emergency contact. So when the dean's assistant sent out the general RSVP email for the family seating section, I saw it, and I went, not for the ceremony. Not to watch my younger sister stride across that stage draped in honors while my parents beamed like they hadn't forgotten they had another daughter. No. I went because I needed to see for myself if the exile was real. It was. When I arrived at the venue, a sprawling courtyard decked in white and blue streamers, I saw them from across the grass. My father in his best blazer tie clipped just right. My mother gripping her pearls like prayer beads. And Ava, my sister, perfect as always. Valedictorian internships lined up like pearls on a necklace. She'd done everything right. I wasn't jealous. But I was tired of pretending we weren't both born into the same story. I stood 10 feet away. They saw me. I saw them see me. And then they looked through me. My mother's hand tightened on my father's arm and he led her away. Not a wave, not a nod, nothing. Like I was a mistake that had already been erased. I should have left, but I stayed. It's strange, isn't it? The way silence fills in the cracks where love should have been. You don't notice the absence right away. It builds, one forgotten birthday, one ignored phone call, one empty chair at Thanksgiving. Until one day you're standing in a crowd of family and realize they've already disowned you. Just not out loud. That afternoon, I watched Ava walk across the stage. I clapped quietly. No one noticed. No one asked who I was. They were too busy filming with their phones, hugging, crying, celebrating the golden child I slipped out before they got to the reception. But I made one call. Just one. To someone who knew the story underneath the celebration. Because secrets don't stay buried forever, not even the one that built this perfect little family photo. The story beneath the surface wasn't something I had planned to reveal. Not like this. Not in front of flowers and graduation caps and champagne flutes clinking against catered glasses. But sometimes truth pushes its way out, not when it's convenient, but when it's needed. My mother used to say that Ava was the miracle child. She said it with this soft reverence in her voice, like Ava had descended straight from the stars and landed in our living room. I was 12 when she was born. Old enough to understand that something had changed, that I had been repositioned in the family gently but firmly. After Ava came, I wasn't the daughter. I was the helper, the babysitter. The shadow in the hallway, I'd tuck her in, braid her hair, pack her lunches when Mom forgot. At first, I told myself it was love. That's what love looked like, sacrifice. But it started to feel more like a transaction. My worth was measured in what I could give, and Ava's worth in simply existing. At school, it was no better. You're Ava's sister. People would ask later once we were older. She's amazing. What do you do? I'd smile, shrug, say something vague. My accomplishments never made it to the family fridge, but Ava's every award was framed. When I got into Columbia, they told me they couldn't afford the tuition, even after I got a partial scholarship. You'll understand one day, my father said, we need to focus on Ava now. She's just starting out. I ended up taking night classes at a community college, working 2 jobs to cover rent, books, food. And they never visited. Not once. Meanwhile, Ava got tutors, a car, summer programs in Europe. The irony, I helped fill out the financial aid forms that made it all possible. My name wasn't on anything, but my effort was buried in every line of fine print. Still, I didn't resent her. Not exactly Ava never asked for favoritism. She just basked in it. But as she got older, she started treating me the same way my parents did. Distant, embarrassed. Like I was some ghost from a chapter she didn't want to include in her story. 2 weeks before her graduation, she'd called me for the first time in a year. I know this is awkward. She said, her voice breezy, like we were catching up over coffee. But Mom and Dad don't want drama at the ceremony. Maybe it's better if you sit this one out. I remember staring at the phone silent. You know how tense things get? She added quickly, it's just one day. Be mature about it. And I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just said, sure, Ava, I'll be mature. Then I hung up. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd kept something all these years. Something buried in an old lockbox beneath my bed. Something I hadn't looked at in over a decade. But after that call, I pulled it out. It was a letter. With my mother's handwriting on the envelope, the ink had faded, but the words still pressed through the paper like they were etched into it. The date was from the year Ava was born. The content, well, that's what changed everything. I didn't plan to bring the letter. At first, I just sat with it in my lap, reading it over and over as if the words might change, but they didn't. They never had. My mother had written it late at night according to the timestamp, and it was never meant for me. It was addressed to someone named Claire. No last name. Just Claire. The tone was urgent, frantic, almost terrified. She spoke of a mistake, a decision made in silence. She begged for forgiveness. I can't raise both. Not now, we're not ready. The first one, she was unexpected, but I tried. This time, I can't, I'm choosing the life I want. Claire, I'm sorry. The letter ended with a line that still rings in my head like a distant bell. I'm keeping the new one, you'll understand. Please take the other. That other was me. Claire, my aunt, though I'd only ever met her a handful of times, didn't go through with it. She never answered the letter, never came to take me. But somehow my mother still managed to go through the motions of raising me without ever truly accepting I was hers. No wonder it always felt like I didn't belong. No wonder the air around me felt colder when she walked in the room. I didn't know what revealing the letter would do. I just knew I couldn't sit through one more toast to a fantasy family that had already decided I was disposable. So I returned to the reception. It was in the grand rotunda of the university, lit by chandeliers and warmed by applause. Guests milled about posing for photos, sipping wine. Ava was up front, standing with the department head, and my parents, her face glowing beneath the university crest. I didn't walk in with fury. I didn't storm in, I just moved through the crowd with the letter tucked into my jacket pocket and found the microphone left unattended on the podium from earlier speeches. At first, no one noticed. Then I tapped the mic gently. The feedback whined for a second and everyone turned. My father's smile faltered. My mother went rigid. Ava's brows pulled together. Confused, I breathed once. Deeply, then I began. Before the evening ends, I said calmly, there's something I need to say. Not to ruin the celebration, but to clarify the story that's being celebrated. A few nervous laughs broke out. The kind people use when they hope a moment will pass quickly. It didn't. I'm her sister, I said, pointing toward Ava. But I'm also something else. I'm the secret this family has buried for years. I was never disowned officially because they never really claimed me to begin with. I saw my mother step forward, lips parting, but my father gently pulled her back. He knew. Somehow I think he always did. I unfolded the letter slowly. This was written by my mother the year Ava was born. I said she asked someone else to come take me, to relieve her of the burden of being a mother, to both of us. A hush fell over the room like snow. I wasn't supposed to read this, I said. But I did. And now so will you. And I read it, word for word. No embellishments. No trembling voice. Just the truth. When I finished, I looked up. The silence was absolute. No more clinking glasses. No more polite music humming through the speakers. Just a sea of wide eyes, frozen smiles, and one woman, my mother, standing pale and still her fingers clutching the pearls like they might choke her. Then came the sound that shattered everything. A scream, not mine, hers. The sound tore through the room like glass breaking. My mother's scream wasn't loud in volume, but sharp, raw, and involuntary. like something deep inside her had finally cracked. She didn't collapse, but her knees buckled slightly, and my father had to grip her elbow to keep her upright. Her face, usually so composed, was twisted in something I couldn't name. Shock, rage, guilt. I didn't flinch. I stood at the podium, the letter still in my hand, though now it trembled just slightly. Not from fear, but from the magnitude of what had finally been spoken aloud. The guests were silent. One of Ava's professors blinked, stunned, holding a flute of untouched Prosecco. A cousin who hadn't spoken to me in 5 years lowered her phone from where she'd been filming the event just moments earlier. Someone in the back whispered, "Is that real?" And someone else responded, "That explains everything." Ava took a slow step toward me. Her mouth parted like she wanted to deny it, refute it. But something in her eyes wavered. I could tell she was remembering things. Moments, strange silences. The way our mother flinched at my voice when I was a child. How I'd always been the one left out of family portraits, asked to take the photo instead of being in it. "You're lying," Ava said at last, but her voice wasn't sure. I turned to her, still calm. "Do I seem angry?" "Ava," I asked, "I'm not here to hurt you. This isn't about revenge, it's about finally stepping into the light after being pushed into the dark for so long." I forgot what my own name sounded like in their mouths. I walked down the steps of the stage, passing the long banquet tables, the floral centerpieces, the champagne pyramid someone had spent hours assembling. I stopped just in front of my mother. "I didn't come here to expose you." I said, my voice softer now. "But when you taught Ava to erase me too, when you told her I didn't belong, that's when I knew silence was no longer protection. It was permission." My mother opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I turned to the crowd, not as an accuser, but as someone finally done hiding. "I loved this family," I said. Even when I was invisible. Even when every celebration was a reminder that I was an afterthought. But this, I lifted the letter once more. This explains why I never felt seen. Why I've spent my life proving myself to people who decided I was unwanted before I could even speak. Then I folded the letter in half. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm just done pretending. I dropped the letter gently on the nearest table. A pause. And then someone clapped. It was small. A single clap, deliberate from a woman in the back I didn't recognize. Then another, then a few more. Not a standing ovation, just a ripple of acknowledgement that the illusion had shattered and the truth had landed. My father's hand dropped from my mother's elbow. Ava stared at me, lips trembling, not with hate, but confusion. Her world was no longer intact. But I felt strangely steady. I didn't stay for the aftermath. Once the truth had been spoken, the silence that followed was enough for me. I didn't need their apologies. I didn't need their defense. I just needed to walk out of that room with my head held high, knowing that for the first time they saw me. Not as a shadow. Not as a mistake, but as a woman who dared to speak when silence had cost her everything. I stepped outside into the cool dusk air. The celebration inside was still humming behind closed doors, but it felt distant now. I walked down the stone steps the letter left behind, no longer mine to carry. As I reached the garden path that circled the venue, I heard hurried footsteps behind me. I didn't turn right away. I knew who it was before she even spoke. "Wait," Ava said, breath-catching. "Please, just wait." I stopped. Not for her, but because I was curious. For the first time, she wasn't approaching me with a smirk or a lecture on maturity. Her voice had cracked. Her composure had slipped. She stepped in front of me, arms crossed over her chest like she was bracing for wind. "Was it real?" she asked. I nodded. "Once you saw the letter." "I didn't want to believe it," she whispered. "I mean, I always felt something was off. But how do you grow up believing someone is your mother only to realize she erased her first child like it was nothing?" I looked at her closely. She wasn't accusing me, she was unraveling. The edges of her world had frayed and she didn't know how to sew them back. "I don't blame you," I said gently. "You didn't choose to be the favorite, you just learned how to live with it." Ava blinked fast, then looked away. They made me feel like I was special because of what I achieved. But now I wonder if it was always because I wasn't you. That sentence lingered in the air between us. It wasn't said in cruelty. It was just true. I came here to honor your day, I said, not to ruin it. But you called me before all this. Remember, told me not to show up. Told me to be mature. She winced. I was trying to protect the image. She admitted I didn't want anything uncomfortable or messy. I gave her a small, sad smile. Life is messy, Ava. And some of us have had to clean it up in silence for years while others posed for pictures. She looked at me again. Really looked, and for once I saw no pity in her eyes. No defensiveness, just recognition. I'm sorry, she said. It wasn't a grand apology. It didn't undo years, but it was honest. I don't need an apology. I said, I just need to stop pretending I'm okay with being erased. We stood in silence for a moment. Then I turned toward the gate at the end of the path. Where are you going? She asked quietly. Home. I said, a real one. One I've built for myself. One that doesn't depend on someone else's approval. She didn't follow. She didn't ask for more. And that was enough. The following days were quieter than I expected. No frantic phone calls, no tearful apologies, no sudden flood of relatives reaching out to clear the air. Just stillness. And in that stillness, I found something unexpected. Peace. I didn't check social media. I didn't respond to texts. I just let the silence settle where the noise used to be. For the first time in years, I wasn't chasing anyone's attention. I wasn't trying to prove I belonged. I returned to my apartment, a small space on the edge of town with creaky floors and windows that rattled in the wind. It wasn't impressive, but it was mine. Every plant, every chipped mug, every book stacked on the coffee table, I had chosen them. Nothing here was inherited or approved, and that made it sacred. A few days later, a letter arrived. Not an email, a real envelope, handwritten. It was from my father. He hadn't spoken at the graduation. He hadn't defended my mother. But he had watched quietly. And now on paper, he tried to speak. I won't justify what we did. I was there. I watched it happen. I let it happen. And I didn't stop it. I don't know what kind of man that makes me, but I do know I've thought of you every day since you left our house at 18 with a duffel bag and no goodbye. I didn't write sooner because I thought time would fix things. But time doesn't fix silence. It just buries it deeper. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. But if not, I understand. Just know that I see you now. I really do. I read it once. Then again, I didn't cry. I didn't crumble. I folded it gently and tucked it into a drawer, not to forget, but to remind myself that even small reckonings can be real. I didn't write back, not yet. Ava sent a message a week later. It was simple. Just a photo of the two of us as kids, me holding her when she was maybe 3, both of us in oversized pajamas. No caption, just the image. It made me pause. I thought about all the birthdays I spent alone, all the holidays where I'd show up and leave early, pretending I had other plans. I thought about the hundreds of times I laughed at their jokes just to be included. The years I spent folding myself into a version of the daughter they could tolerate, and I let all of it go. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a tear-streaked montage. I just released it, like exhaling after holding my breath for a decade. I took a walk later that afternoon. The weather was warm. The sun filtered through the branches, dappled across the sidewalk. No one recognized me. No one whispered behind my back. No one expected anything from me. And in that anonymity, I found something deeper than approval. I found freedom. It's strange how healing doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like a cup of tea that's finally cooled to the right temperature. Like sunlight on your back when you weren't looking for it. Like silence that isn't heavy anymore. I didn't return to the family home. I didn't attend Ava's post-grad party, even though she sent the invitation herself this time. I didn't respond to my father's second letter, longer, more reflective ending with, "We hope one day there's space for us to try again. Maybe there will be. Maybe not." I've learned that forgiveness isn't a door you swing open all at once. It's a window cracked slightly, just enough to let in air and maybe light. But it has to come on your own terms. On the first crisp day of fall, I visited the old park I used to walk to as a child alone. Back then, I thought of it as a quiet escape, a place where I could be invisible without it hurting. Now I saw it differently. The trees had started to turn amber deep gold, a few still holding on to their green children were laughing on the far end of the field. A couple walked by hands intertwined. It was just life. Simple, unscripted. I wandered toward the far corner where the old wooden swing still hung between two birches. The chains squeaked gently in the breeze. I sat down, letting it sway slightly under my weight. My hands rested on my lap. My breath was slow. I closed my eyes, and I pictured that little girl again, the one I used to be, sitting on this very swing, hoping deep down someone would come looking for her. This time someone had me. I had come back for her. And that was enough. No applause. No grand finale. Just the quiet certainty that I didn't need to explain myself to anyone anymore. Not to be seen. Not to be loved. Just to be. The sun dipped behind the trees, casting a soft amber glow across the park. I stood brushing off my jeans and walked away from the swing. Not with regret, but with reverence. It had carried me through more than I realized. As I reached the path leading back to the street, I glanced back one last time. The swing moved gently in the breeze. Empty, peaceful, free. Just like me.